Ladies and gentlemen, another episode of Let's Talk 20's, episode 13. Know Your Worth was the topic of discussion today. Kind of talking about what defines worth, how to find your own self worth, and how to feel valuable in a very vulnerable time in your 20s. And when you feel down like you're not worth anything, how to truly find yourself. So this episode has a lot of great content. We recorded actually with cameras for the first time. And naturally, after the recording's done, the video got lost and I can't recover it for some reason. So yeah, it adds a little comical sense to it. Just imagine we actually had our cameras on. Hopefully we actually get that squared away for the next episode. But me, Connor, GT, we're loving the feedback we're getting, and hopefully you guys enjoy this episode as much as you did on the last episode with my new co-host. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Let's Talk 20's, episode 13. Just when you guys thought I had no more tricks up my sleeve, bam, webcam's on. The boys, you can see their faces now. Cheers.
Cheers.
Episode 13, guys. The topic for this week is going to be Know Your Worth. So kind of discussing how to know your value for yourself and for others in your life and to society in general, and kind of figuring out when you're at that low point, you feel like you don't have anything going for you and you feel like you're worthless. It's good to take a step back and kind of realize that you are important, you are special, and you are vital to yourself and also to others that love you. So question number one, open-ended, whoever wants to talk first. Gentlemen, this is a question that my friend Cole DM'd me on Instagram. Mm-hmm. His question was, what defines worth?
GT, you want to go or you want me to go?
I'll go.
All right.
I think know your worth. It comes in all different shapes, sizes, thoughts, both male, female, any religions, ethics, morals, everything. So I definitely think it's open to whoever, and it's very personalized. There's society stuff. Me personally, I think your worth is how great you are in terms of how helpful you can be to other people as the main worth to society. But there's also worth having a different type of worth for different events, different maybe sports, acting, singing. There's whole lots of different categories that worth can be used. So I think it definitely depends on how you want to use it.
Great answer, man. Connor, what do you got for that, man?
Yeah, I like that answer because it encapsulates like everybody's different backgrounds and where everybody comes from. And of course, worth is valued differently based on, like you said, whatever religion you're a part of, whatever society you grow up in. So that's a good thing to figure out, like what the perception of worth is based on where you are, right? And then I think another big part of it is finding out how you value yourself. That's a big one. And so you have to figure out like, okay, what does worth mean to me? And I think a good way to figure that out, at least for me, is to think about like what your strengths and what your weaknesses are, and to think about what you're good at and what you're not good at. Everybody that comes into this world, in my opinion, offers something completely unique and completely different compared to somebody else. Even if you end up doing the same thing as somebody else, you're going to have your own unique fingerprints on it, right? And so figuring out what your strengths and weaknesses are, I think is a big part of figuring out what worth is, because that is a quantifiable way for you to figure out what you can offer to other people, like GT said. And I do think that at the end of the day, we're put on this earth to help people. I would say the majority of us, and I think most of us, or it seems like in my experience, most of us have something intrinsic inside of us to help people. Like we gain something out of that. So figuring out what your strengths and weaknesses are is a big part of knowing what your worth is.
Yeah, I agree with both of those answers. It's a very tricky question because there is no right answer, and like you guys both said, it varies person to person. So your definition of what is worth to you may be different than what I think my own self-worth is vital for. What I value might be different than you guys, but I would agree it's more so of what your strengths and weaknesses are, but also what you contribute to others. I think you guys kind of touched on that. Next question is, what does worth mean to you?
Taylor, do you want to do it?
Yeah. What does worth mean to me? I feel like it kind of goes hand in hand with purpose, but also it goes with your peace of mind, kind of your internal peace. So I feel like it's a combination of knowing what your purpose is, but also realizing that who you are and what you are good at, maybe what you're not good at, you're comfortable with that, you're aware of that, and you accept that. You can always try to better yourself and improve yourself in various areas, but having that comfortability and realizing that you're not going to be the best at everything, it's physically impossible. It kind of helps you hone in on maybe what your strengths are and turning that into whether that's your career or your hobby that you're very good at, or something that gives you pleasure in order to feel like you're giving back to others or you're contributing something that you think is valuable. So that's what I would say. It's kind of having the purpose, finding your purpose, but also having that peace of mind and realizing what your worth is. And that worth is going to be different than maybe what your friends or your close loved ones feel like it is. But, that's the beauty of it. What about you guys? Do you have anything to add to that?
Damn, I don't even think. Holy crap.
What, was that good or something?
Wow.
Very profound, man. Very profound.
Thank you.
Damn. Wow.
Yeah, it's hard because it's like. Or did you have something you wanted to say, GT?
No, you good. I'll piggyback off of you.
Yeah, I can't really say too much because it's like, we've already touched on, at least for me, what it means to me is what I can offer other people and how I can contribute to society in a meaningful way that makes a positive impact on people. That's where I get my worth from. That's something that I know that I value as a person, for example. So, and I think another part of worth is figuring out what you value too, what's important to you in life, and figuring out what might matter to you might not matter to other people. And so in order to figure out how much something is worth to you, you have to know how much you value it in the first place. So it's like, that's another big component of it as well. That's really the only thing I can add on to Tanner's answer, honestly, because I think he summarized like the full scope of how it can be different for everyone.
Wow. Thanks, guys, for leaving me with absolutely nothing. So, wow, people, this is where I look like that guy. So,
if you got nothing to add, buddy, I can move on to a different question. But go ahead if you got something.
I already said it earlier in the first question, just what can you bring to society? So, kind of with your purpose, like you said. So,
sure, no worries there.
Like I said, different words.
What personal experience made you to have to figure out what your worth is? Sorry, I butchered that. But what personal experience made you to have to figure out what your worth is?
Wow. I mean, I can go first because I'm going through it right now, actually. It's funny, to be transparent with everybody. I was in a long-term relationship before 2022 up until December of 2021. My long-term girlfriend and I, we broke up. We were together for about 3 years. Not as long-term as some people, but decently long-term. And before I got with her and leading up to that and thinking about it as a kid, that's where a lot of my... Oh no! Did we lose GT?
He'll join back on it.
That's okay. Yeah. Hopefully he'll join back. We miss that guy. So I'll just give my piece. But yeah, so I felt like a lot of my worth for me was because of how obsessed I was with finding a relationship, and so I was trying to be that perfect guy in a relationship for a long time. And then when I found a relationship, it was great, and I was really happy in a lot of ways. But then I also, as it started getting towards the end, I started realizing maybe I wasn't quite being myself, and it's after I've been out of this breakup, I've realized that I'm having to figure out now, after this personal experience, what actually matters to me and what.
He was in the middle of a guy. He was in the middle of a goddamn answer. Connor, finish your sentence. Connor, finish your sentence,
and then we'll talk about this.
No, I was just gonna say my personal experience has been getting out of a long-term relationship, and all of my self-worth and value that I shouldn't have put into my relationship was put into that relationship. And so now afterwards, I've had to figure out who I am, basically, and I've had to figure out what I actually value now that I don't have that person. So it's been challenging, but it's made me look more internally at myself probably since I was like in middle school, honestly.
If I can add to that real quick, I would say that, and this is something I would really like to talk about in the future with relationships, is that it's two individuals coming together who have different value or start off with different values and different beliefs and maybe different personalities. But as you get further into relationship and you get to know each other, you either make compromises or you guys start to kind of mesh and in some ways kind of form a unity in aspects. And so you kind of lose or give up a part of yourself and who you were before. And a lot of people, they forget who they are as an individual and being like a co-independent relationship and make their whole life and everything revolve around that relationship.
Yep, that's what I
So
did.
when they get out or they're in a long-term relationship and that was their whole life, they put everything into their significant other and then they break up, they have to reevaluate everything about themselves because they're so used to doing these compromises or kind of making these own decisions on trying to be one with their partner, and then you kind of lose a little bit of yourself.
Yep, that's exactly
And
what happened to me.
something in terms of going back to knowing your worth, you lose that. You don't know. You're sitting there like, I don't know. I was putting everything into my significant other to where I forgot what I value, what I needed for myself. I kind of gave up a little bit part of myself for that person. So, BT, did you hear my question before you disconnected, buddy?
Absolutely not, because it was frozen. My internet just dropped.
Oh. No, you're good.
I'm
you're
back,
good. So
people.
the question was, what personal experience made you have to figure out what your worth is?
Oh, dude. Which one you want to talk about? I think
the most profound one.
I hate doing this. Oh, knowing my worth. Senior year and freshman year. Senior year of high school and freshman year of college. Tanner knows this so well. Senior year, I had a girlfriend, did everything about her, did not focus on my stuff, which I'm not saying, doing a lot with your significant other is bad. While that is what you should be around your significant other, but you have to also prioritize stuff for you and your worth and your time and respectful of your own time because it adds to your worth as a person to others and not just to her, right? Because there's other people in your lives. And I then went to college. I didn't work on baseball like I should have, and other people around me. And I feel bad for those people, and I apologize because I focused so much on one person that I lost my worth to other people. And that affected stuff at that. And then I had to rekindle things and grow them back while I had some people who were there through it all. So thank you, Tanner. Thank you, my parents and family. It's tough.
It is.
And my worth, I thought I was only a baseball player and to party and have fun and be the cool guy. That was my worth. And if I wasn't cool and I didn't play baseball, what was that worth, man? I was just another person in college. But realizing that everyone's purpose, like we did on previous podcasts, everyone's purpose is different. While I might have thought my purpose was all that, it could, not even could, it is setting me up to build my worth and realizing more of my true worth of who I am, and that's to be a good friend, both to everybody I encounter, help anybody I can, and that's why I try to do a lot of charity work, help other people out, teach the younger generation about baseball, inspire people through my story, and do whatever I can to put a smile on other people's faces and to spread the good word.
I like that, man. Yeah, it's definitely a tough situation when you're really lost and you lose a good part of yourself, whether it's because you weren't focusing on yourself or a traumatic event happened to you and you had to reinvent yourself. Like, it's very hard to rebuild from ground zero and work your way up to figuring out what you truly want, especially in a vulnerable time like in your 20s. Because you have people who maybe are still living in the same hometown as high school and never moved away from there, and then you got people who are married and have kids and this, and you see all these people in different areas or stages in their life, and then you got to figure out, well, I don't know if I'm in any of these categories. How do I go about me, and how do I rebuild myself? If you guys don't mind talking about me real quick, Connor, if you have something to say, go ahead.
No, I had something I was going to add, but I
Sure.
want to hear what you said. I want to hear what you say because it'll probably relate. So go ahead.
Well, I was going to say personally, my experience on having to figure out what my worth is was 100% with my dad's accident. So not something that directly happened to, well, it did directly happen to me. I wasn't the one who got in the accident, but with my dad going through the issues he did and becoming a bilateral amputee and all these other things, and watching him learn how to walk again, and having to physically bathe my father because he's unable to, and him getting cancer twice, and like, he's my role model, but realizing that I almost lost my father, kind of made me feel like, not that that could be me, but realizing that, man, anyone could be like that. You never know. And not, hopefully nothing happens to anyone, but you just never know. So taking his experience and realizing that I almost lost my father and I was with him the day prior kind of made me reevaluate my lifestyle, and realizing that, I need to figure out what my worth is, and realize what my values are, and kind of start living my own life, because I could be gone tomorrow and I got to live every day like it's my last. So kind of to take my dad's situation and spin it and put myself in that shoes just kind of made me realize what my worth was. That was my situation. Wow. But Connor, go ahead with what you had to add.
I remember you used to talk about that a lot, Tanner, and how it impacted you. It's really cool how far you've come with your experience with that, man. That wouldn't have been easy to deal with anybody's. And I'm so glad you and your dad are so close, man.
Oh yeah,
I'm glad he's here.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Love Josh.
Josh is an awesome guy.
Honestly, a true hero when you think about it. His worth, I'm sure, and he knows his worth. He is the happiest person in the world. You always see him happy until Tanner does some dumb shit. And then he's not happy. And then that's when
anyways, Connor,
we can talk about that. That's a whole podcast episode. No, I'm just kidding.
Fellas,
well, I was actually going to add before you move on to the next question. I wanted to cover something GT said, and you touched on it briefly, but there was that whole thing where GT said, I felt like I was only a baseball player, and if I wasn't that, then I was just another guy in college. And it's just so interesting to me, and I fall into this, how much our worth sometimes comes from labels of like what success is. And it's like you tie it to your status symbol of like maybe how well you're doing in your job, for example. And that is an important part because,
my God, yes.
It is important. Don't get me wrong. It's important because if you have a good status with your job and you're in a good position, you're going to make more money, you're going to have a better lifestyle, that's important. But you also said that now your worth also has to do with treating people good and like being friends to everybody and just being there for people. And I think that it's good to have external things that you can value that are part of your worth, but it's also good to have internal things that just internally motivate you, like just being a good friend and a good person to everybody around you, like GT said. So I really like that he brought that up. So I just wanted to shout out GT here.
Absolutely.
Shout out my boy. For the boys.
For the boys.
Guys, I have another question that might be a little personal or something specific, but I feel like it's something that needs to be asked. It's for someone who doesn't think they are worth anything. How do you talk them through, one, addressing their insecurities or weaknesses, but two, also talk through their worth and value to themselves, but also how they are valuable to others?
It speaks so much to me. And
go ahead, GT. Take it away, man.
Sorry. So,
you got it.
My worth, I know this is Let's Talk 20's, but this happened way before. This even happened before Tanner. And it leads up to going into my 20's. But as a kid, I was a little bit bigger earlier on. And then I stayed short and chubby. And my nickname was Tater Tot. I shit you not. Swear to God. Short, chubby, greasy me. Being called Tater Tot, I got picked on all the time. And I thought your worth was being popular. And if you had more friends, your worth was way higher. And that's what a lot of people in their 20s are thinking, to
Yep.
where when you, not even in your 20s, but realizing that in your 20s is sometimes better. And just don't care. Like, your worth is you. And just, I think it's crazy because once people grow and start to realize how you control your own worth and how you characterize and determine your own worth and build your own growth, I think that's when it helps with their purpose in life and mindsets, just being the best dumb and being the best person. So
Absolutely.
No, I think that's great too. It's like it kind of touches on what people tell you who you are, especially when you're younger, just with the teasing or even with your strengths too. Oh, you're so good at this and you should do this because like you're good at this. But not everybody does a career in what they're good at. If they don't like what they're good at, that doesn't, they're not going to do it, right? Because you might be good at like math, but you fucking hate math, right? Like doesn't mean you're going to be a mathematician. So I liked that you touched on that, GT, because it's like it's so much about what other people tell you about yourself, especially if you're like really impressionable when you're in your 20s and when you're a teenager. That contributes to your worth, because
No kidding.
if you don't figure out what your worth is to yourself and what you mean to yourself first, it's like that's the voice that speaks the loudest. So you go with that. So being popular is a huge thing to jump into. I mean, I can relate to that, GT, and I can relate to if people told me I was doing a good job at something, or if people told me that I looked good a certain day, I was like, oh, I'm wearing this blue shirt, so that means that I got to wear blue more because I look good in blue. But it's like, you're right. You get to a point where you're in your 20s or at whatever point you find this in your life where you're just like, look, I have a base worth that everybody has. Like, I am worth something just no matter what, because I'm here and I have something to offer. So whatever my deepest insecurities are, I have to look past that because I have to be worth something because I was brought here for a reason. So now that's what I would say to somebody is that, like, even if your insecurities are making you think you're not worth anything, you're here and there's something that you can offer that's different from anybody else. You just got to find out what that is. And if you need me to help you do it, or you need somebody that you're close to help you do it, let me help you. Let's figure this out together. So that's what I would say to somebody, because I've had somebody do that for me. So I want to give back.
Yeah, that's really cool, Connor. I feel like that's a huge part too. You guys both said is how much, especially people in their 20s, kind of value other people's opinions and kind of allow other people to, whisper in their head, and you take that to heart. It's easier said than done to not allow that to really kind of get to your head, but you have to take everything with a grain of salt, because at the end of the day, if you're living your own life, you have to do what's best for you and your own conscience is telling you to do.
Yep.
And whether that is finding a purpose or just taking it day by day and slowly but surely trying to rebuild yourself and love yourself again. And then we can get to the point of figuring out what that purpose is.
Yeah.
It's a long process. So, if you're struggling, reach out to me, reach out to Connor, reach out to GT, whoever you think the best looking guy is, and realize that you do matter. Even if you haven't found your purpose, that doesn't mean that you're worthless or that you don't have anything going for you. You got plenty going for you, and I'm proud of you for sticking with us.
Yeah.
Connor, I'm going to let you go ahead and take care of any questions for GT and I.
Sure. Also, real quick, just a brief pause, because there's a adorable cat on the screen. What's the cat's name, GT?
Kitty, I swear.
Kitty?
Yeah, her name is Kitty.
Hi, Kitty.
So
If y'all can't see her, if you're listening on
she's
Spotify, she's a beautiful, beautiful gray kitty with green eyes.
Green eyes, green
oh
eyes.
my
Wow.
gosh. She got gorgeous eyes. My goodness.
Oh, yeah.
So pretty. All right, small
Sorry.
aside. No, I love cats.
She opened up the door by herself. I shit you not.
I saw it. It was so cute. I heard her
Like
meow
a
too.
paranormal activity. What the hell? 'Cause you can't see down.
That's so funny. All right, well, we've covered a couple of my questions already, so I think I'll have one that I'm curious to see what you all think about this, because I think it's probably a hot take that I have. But my question is, What do you think about the popular life advice saying you can do anything you set your mind to as long as you believe in yourself? Do you think it's helpful advice, or do you think it keeps people from figuring out who they really are?
Gigi, you got something, or you want me to go first?
It doesn't matter. I'm good with whatever because I got some things.
I got some.
Okay.
Oh, let's cook.
Back to the little voices in your head or outside voices kind of whispering in your ear, right? Little Jimmy here who wants to be in the NFL, but his dad was someone who played football his whole life and wants Jimmy to go to NFL because, I didn't go to the NFL, so I want my son to go to NFL. And little Jimmy says, "Oh man, Dad, you really think I can go to the NFL?" And his dad says, "Jimmy, I kid you not, you're going to the NFL, baby. Just put your mind to it." And whether it's to make other people proud or to kind of be told or convinced that, hey, you're good at this, you should do this. And maybe it's not what your calling is, but it's something you're good at and it has the path of least resistance. And you're like, okay, I guess I'll do it because I'm good at it. And I know I can do it well and continue to grow in that hobby or career, whatever it is. I'll stick with. I feel like it's a good saying. You can do anything if you put your mind to it. Hard work does pay off, but you also have to have that intrinsic motivation and feel like what you're doing is actually what you want to do. Because no matter how good you are at something, if it's not what you want to do, at some point you're going to get burnt out, tired of it, hate it, whatever the case is. So this is probably an extremely hot take. I feel like the saying is true, but at the same time, just because you put your mind to something, you can achieve anything. It doesn't mean that maybe something you put your mind to is what you personally think your worth is when you sit down and really think about yourself. Does that make sense, or am I?
Yeah.
Okay.
It makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense,
Okay.
and it echoes somewhat of how I feel. But I'll get into that after GT goes. So
Sure.
go ahead, GT.
Going off that, because your worth, the worth that you bring to this world, and it goes into your purpose. But if your purpose is not what you think your worth is, then it's not correct. So
That's a great way to put it.
it's crazy to look at it. It's just crazy because those two work hand in hand so closely and are tight knit. They can be completely opposites, like you said. And for the most part, I would agree that if you put your mind to it, you can make it happen in a slight degree. Maybe not exactly what you think, but you could be over here, but maybe instead of that, you went this way, and you could have passed it, but you went this way. Or you could have gone that way, then you went this way, and you're there with it.
For people who are on Spotify, GT, can you specify maybe instead of going straight up towards the goal, you diverted?
If you go straight up, maybe like you might not go straight into the line that you want, but you could go over to the side and at the same height of it, or maybe a different way around it and higher.
To like a different goal. Different goal maybe that you originally
diverted. Yeah, and you get a detour route to something even greater because your worth might be higher and better than what you thought your purpose was.
Right.
So
I like that.
Yeah.
Connor, what do you have to say, man?
I mean, you guys kind of like hit it on the nose. Where like, of course, it's in essence, it's helpful because you do if whatever you're passionate about and whatever you want to do, if you put your mind to it, it's going to be helpful to put your mind to it, like y'all are saying. It's just, does this saying make us compare ourselves to people who say that's the advice that they follow and they were successful, and you try to follow that advice and you're not successful, and then you're like, my worth isn't as much because I couldn't fit this mold of life advice? And it's such a general piece of life advice. Like it's helpful because it's like you're setting your mind to a goal and it's great and all, but my hot take is that I don't know if it's actually as helpful as people maybe think that it is. Like, I think it's helpful in getting in that kind of mindset, But I think you could maybe rephrase it like you can do anything you set to your mind to that you want to do as long as you believe in yourself, for example. That could be another different way of looking at it. Like, just because it's kind of like Tanner was saying, like the kid that is trying to be in the NFL, what if he is a terrible football player? Like, what if
But
his
the best coach?
yeah, what if his athletic ability is not good enough? He like you're born with some natural talent, right? Like part of succeeding at anything is either talent and then it's hard work. You know, it's what they say, like 10% talent, 90% hard work, whatever, right? But like, so if you don't have that talent, like GT said, you can start working towards it, and it's a good mindset to have. But should you look at it like I'm working towards this goal and I don't reach my exact goal, but I reach something else, is that still a failure, even though I didn't set my mind to that original goal? No, you set your mind to better yourself, maybe simplify whatever the goal is, or you set your goal to like become the best version of yourself, for example. So I think it can be helpful advice. It's just my take on it was that I feel like it can make people look at themselves like, why can't I do something if I just set my mind to it? It's like you're just born a certain way. You're good at certain things, and that's just how you're born. You have no say in that. Like, you can work at your weaknesses and you can work at bettering some of the things you're not as strong at, but it's not going to change the fact that you're still weaker at it than somebody who's naturally talented at it. Like, I'm not a good actor, for example. I know people who are very charismatic and could be actors, but I'm not, because I don't have that in me. Doesn't mean my self-worth is different. It just means that that's just not a strength of mine, you know? So I think it just depends on how you look at the advice. That was my take, and it seems like you guys have the same take as well.
Yeah, we'll probably get shit for that one, but I feel like
Yep.
I feel like it's one of those. Go ahead.
No. I'm gonna go off yours because I thought about this while Connor was talking, but
No, then go ahead. I won't. I'll piggyback off of you, buddy. Go ahead.
no, it's when you said 10% talent, 90% hard work. Oh my god, man. Freaking, for the people who cannot see, I'm wearing a Georgia Jackets shirt. So both being a player and a coach, I see this firsthand, have experienced it firsthand. But this isn't the world of baseball. Now, this is just a different one, right? This is baseball worth, where they think their worth is so much higher because they might have been better than others early on, but they didn't do the hard work, like the people who weren't born with the amazing, outrageous talent, but then they worked their butt off, and then guess what? They're then considered the GOATs, or the ones who are considered the gods of it. So, but that goes off maybe playing the guitar, music, being an artist, podcast. God had, who knows? Tanner came up with this one day. Like, I'm gonna do a podcast. Fuck it. I'm gonna do a podcast.
And now it's top 10 listened podcast in the whole world.
Yep.
And then exactly because of you amazing people that could take us there. And we would take you guys with us. So it's crazy. The hard work, because your worth is not determined off of what you are born immediately with, but what you can learn, take with you as you go through the journey, and how you can build on top of the step before you, and build and build and build and climb that ladder.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 100%. Connor, did you want to ask another question, or you want to pass it on to GT here?
I guess I think I'm good, honestly. We've pretty much covered most of my questions already in some form. So GT, why don't you ask a question or two, my guy?
Okay. Giving the people some good stuff. I'm not shorting these people. For the most part, my questions were mainly answered through you guys and your questions, but just different wording. But one that I think, especially because it's three males on here, and I'm sure you guys saw on the Google Doc, what difference is there between a woman's worth and a man's worth?
Oh man.
What examples could you give for our female listeners? Because there's a lot of them out there. We love every single one of them.
Well, I mean, it's like a lot of worth for any gender in society has to do literally with societal pressure and like how society views that gender. That is where it comes from.
Yep.
That's exactly where it comes from. It comes from how media portrays it. It comes from how people talk about it. It comes from the expectations that you're supposed to have just based on how you were born. And like, that's just where it comes from. It's absolutely how society views it. Whatever society you grow up in, however they accept your gender, whatever your gender is, that's exactly how it is, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with that because, I mean, people think that, women are less intelligent or maybe less capable of doing certain things simply because of their gender. I don't think the question should be what's the difference between a man's and woman's worth. I feel like it's more so of the expectations versus the reality of what's a man versus woman's worth is, because the reality is we're both on a even playing field and almost in every single way, but the expectations and, like you said, Connor, the societal limitations that women have or pressure or norms that really shouldn't be considered acceptable, unfortunately, that are. Yeah, I don't feel like there should be a difference, but there is for some. I mean, there is a reason. It's unfortunately.
It's not. Well, I was gonna. I want to bring up too. We're talking about men and women, but there's also there's transgender people too, and there's a societal pressure, and there's like a societal perception of maybe like how some of these people act just based on how they're portrayed, and like how your worth is going to be. Maybe if you realize, for example, that you're trans and you're like 15 years old, for example, and that's a journey that you have to find out yourself, and that's something that's very personal for you, and it's not going to look the same for you as it is somebody else who's maybe older and figures that part of themselves out, who never had the chance. You know what I mean? And then we talked about like the perception of how the men and women are with their genders, but it's with every gender. It's like how it's portrayed, how their journeys are portrayed makes you think about how your journey is portrayed. And if it's not the same, maybe that makes you think of your self-worth differently, for example. So it's like we've been talking about, you just have to look at your own self first, regardless of who you are. You have to look at everybody regardless of who they are, just at the same equal level.
I have a question for you guys, since all of our original questions were answered, kind of going off of how women have this kind of stigma around them and what they're able to actually achieve and their worth to society. How do you guys handle, or what are your thoughts on people in your life that kind of try to tell you or have their own opinion about what your worth is? Maybe people who dislike you, or maybe people who are close to you and think that, oh, you could do better, this or that. How do you guys manage and kind of accept or handle other people's opinions about your own worth?
Ooh, I think that's good. I think anyone who's listening has thought immediately of a couple different people in all categories.
GT, I think you got something good.
Go?
No, you got it, man.
Ooh, boy, you know what I say? Fuck the haters. Because some people you'll find out real quick because they'll degrade you or try to make themselves feel better. And that's where bullying comes from because some people might think it's just fun, but really deep down something's going on from them because they feel their worth isn't as high as they think it is, or because other people say things, so then they take it upon themselves to, I'm gonna make it mine. Or maybe people are ignorant to what you're doing and they judge it just because they can and because they want to or they're bored. It's like we've talked about. People will knock you for almost anything and everything. And it's sad how people in society will do that without even getting to know that person. And people will degrade people because people might want to be who you are and what your worth is without realizing that their worth is beautiful in their own way. They just haven't found the right way to express or properly execute their worth in this world and in society.
Well, very eloquently put, man.
Connor, what you got to add?
His face changed. Oh, it's back.
I mean, it's a tough question because, at least for me, because like I feel like I'm only just now getting better at this, but I'm a pretty malleable person. I like to change. I like to be open to what people think about the world, and I like to be open to a lot of different diverse perspectives, including about myself, because sometimes people have seen something in me that I've never thought about myself, and I'm like, huh, maybe I need to think about that. I'm okay with I'm comfortable enough with myself where I can look at myself internally and externally if somebody brings something up and it's fine. But when I've struggled with somebody, I think I've realized I've struggled because the way that they perceive my self-worth conflicts with my self-image. And I think that's probably the best way to put it. Whatever your self-image is, if somebody says something to you, whether it's your gut feeling, whether it's your brain, whatever self-image you have of yourself at that point in your life, like I think most people know themselves, barring certain exceptions, pretty well. If somebody says something to you and that conflicts with your self-image and you try to change your self-image, then like you can't sacrifice that, and that makes you sacrifice your worth. And that person is not worth it to sacrifice your image, your worth, and your value for. Absolutely not. So obviously it takes time to figure out what your self-image is, but this is something I'm only just now learning in my 20s. It's like I have to know what my self-image is so that if somebody comes at me and tries to tell me who I am, if that doesn't fit with my self-image and who I want to be and who I know that I am and who I think that I am, then all I have to do is just be like, no, I'm good. I will politely disagree with you, and that's fine. You can have your opinions, but I know who I am at the end of the day.
Good answers. I feel like there is a combination and no perfect proportion of the two, but being open minded, but also being very stern with your own beliefs and your own image, like you said, and kind of your own personal morals and principles.
Yeah.
It's good to be open to other perspectives, but at the same time, if you're sacrificing part of yourself or realizing that you're give up part of yourself for someone else, like going back to the relationship portion, then you're kind of giving up a piece of your self-worth. And it's easier said than done, but I feel like it's very easy to let, if you want to call them haters, if you want to call them people who are from an outside POV and maybe don't know you as personally as they think that they do, it's easy to let those voices kind of dictate and change how you are, because obviously you want people to like you, right? If people are talking shit about you, you're obviously going to try to adapt and change that, so maybe people aren't saying bad things behind your back. But at the same time, maybe they're the ones in the wrong and you're the one in the right. Maybe you're being the stronger person in a situation.
Right.
You look like the asshole, you look like the person in the wrong, you look like the person who's an outsider, but guess what, you stuck true to who you are yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh man, I love both explanations and both of y'all going really well. Going off of Connor, because I thought about this right towards the end of his. In your 20s is where we start to really find out our true worth. Whether some people tell you, oh, I knew my worth when I was 5. How many fucking 5-year-olds know their worth in this world? Okay. If you ask most people in this world, they start to find out their worth in their 20s. So let's talk 20s.
Yep.
Because most people finishing college, most people, some people are different. Okay. We're not here to argue that shit. You can argue that your own damn self, your own self. But
Whoa.
it's being honest, being real. Got to, especially nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
But
I like that.
knowing your worth, most people, society looks, oh, you graduate college, 21, 22 years old, or 23, and your worth is your degree. Using your degree. A lot of people start to find their worth a couple years out of college. unless you're a PhD student who's about 30 or so whatever,
Mm.
right? Your worth, you might flip, you might get a job that doesn't even do with your degree. You might not even go to college, but once you start to get in a profession or a career, it takes a couple years to really start knowing your worth and where like proper way to navigate through different routes, different journeys, different adventures, and how to go about them properly, how you want to go through them properly and bring your worth and use your worth throughout. So that's what I really thought about, and I was like, whoa, I have to say this because it's gonna bother
It's a
me
really good way
probably
to summarize all of it at the end. Yeah.
Well, speaking of summarizing, fellas, do you have any closing thoughts? I feel like we can wrap it up after here, but I just wanted to know if you guys had anything in general to add about this conversation or touch on anything that we previously answered.
I would say the easiest way to know your worth is to love and accept yourself for who you truly are.
Amen, Connor.
And that's what I would leave it at.
I'm not even gonna add nothing. That's absolutely perfect.
As I said previously, even if you don't know what your worth is, you need to realize that you do have something to contribute, even if it feels like it's insignificant or
You don't see it.
you don't see it yet. So just stick through, push through, realize that you do have a purpose here. You're not just here to exist. Everyone has
Right.
something to give, whether it's big or small. And you should be proud of yourself every single day, no matter if you feel like you did a lot or did absolutely nothing in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, to add on to Connor, you need to love yourself, accept yourself, to know what your worth is. And it's easier said than done, and it's a process.
Right.
But once you get to that point, you feel like, I'm kind of at peace with myself. You don't need to be perfect. Get to the point where you're at peace with yourself and you're not saying in your head things that are wrong about you or things that you don't like about yourself. Get to that peace of mind, and then you're able to figure out what your worth is if you haven't gotten there yet. So I'll leave it at that. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on this podcast. The first episode with webcams. Let's go. That's a dub. Cheers to everyone who's not drinking while they listen to this. I thank you guys for listening to another episode of Let's Talk 20s, episode 13, Know Your Worth. Signing off, fellas. Peace.
Goodbye.
Love y'all. Love y'all,
Goodbye.
guys.
Much love.